Having made the decision to break from Marius, the opportunity for Sulla to cultivate new friends from among Rome's conservative faction presented itself in 98 BC. Titus Didius and Metellus Nepos, one of the many Metelli that governed during the late Republic, were elected to the consulship. Despite Marius's every effort to block them, Metellus Nepos, allied with the son of Numidicus, legislated for Metellus Numidicus's legal return from exile. The son of Numidicus led such an indefatigable campaign to bring his father home that he earned himself the cognomen Pius. Though the historians do not specifically tell us Metellus Pius won the support of Sulla, it can be inferred by the fact that Pius remained loyal to Sulla until the day he died. Finally, the Senate officially recalled Metellus Numidicus from exile, and Marius, smarting from the defeat, wanted to be as far from Rome as possible before his old enemy returned. The East, a hotbed of military activity, provided Marius the perfect excuse to leave Rome. Mithridates VI of Pontus had recently invaded Cappadocia. Chasing his wife's nephew, King Ariarathes VIII, from the throne, Mithridates of Pontus appointed his own 8-year-old son, Ariarathes IX, as Cappadocia's new king. After Ariarathes VIII died in exile, Nicomedes III, king of Bithynia, sent urgent envoys to Rome to beg the Senate's aid. With Pontus now occupying Cappadocia, Bithynia was even more vulnerable to attack than before. Nicomedes hinted that he had, living at his court in Bithynia, a son of Cappadocia's former king. Nicomedes had every reason to expect the Senate to support him because Bithynia enjoyed the status of friend and ally to the Roman people. And, despite the previous tensions caused by Mithridates' attempt to secure a Pontic-Roman treaty, Saturninus's accusations of senatorial bribery had ensured Pontus left Rome empty-handed. In response, Mithridates sent his own envoy to Rome. The aggressive king reminded the Senate that because his wife was the late king's aunt, his son was a legitimate descendant of the Ariaratid dynasty. No bastard at the court of Bithynia could have a stronger legal claim to Cappadocia's throne. Once again, Bithynia and Pontus fought their battles within Rome's Senate. As a private citizen, Gaius Marius left Rome to undertake a pilgrimage he had promised to the Bona Dea, Rome's good goddess, for his victory over the Germans. But, without senatorial sanction, Marius traveled to Cappadocia, where he waggled his finger at Mithridates of Pontus, supposedly attempting to shame the upstart king into returning to his own borders. The Optimates, however, were quick to accuse Marius of trying to instigate Mithridates into a war with Rome so that the people would cry out, once again, for Marius's military leadership. With Marius out of Rome, Sulla began wooing the younger generation of Optimates, including those who had been responsible for the stoning of Saturninus on the Senate floor. The older Optimates, like House Speaker Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, and the clan of Metelli, were already too old to be of any real value to the up-and-coming Sulla. Having served only as quaestor to Gaius Marius, Sulla knew the old Optimates would be dead long before Sulla stood high enough on the cursus honorum to benefit from their support. The younger generation of Metelli, Luculli, Scaevola, Caepionus, and more, were far enough behind him that supporting his ambition would be no conflict of interest to their own. Sulla worked hard to create a circle of power from those whose maturity in government would benefit his attempts at high office. Sulla was elected Praetor Urbanus for the 97–96 BC year. The office of Praetor Urbanus differed from that of provincial praetor in that the Praetor Urbanus presided over civil cases within the city of Rome. He was restricted from being away from Rome for any longer than 10 days at a time. In the absence of the consuls, the Praetor Urbanus served as the senior magistrate of the city in the event of a crisis. He could call the Senate to order, and administrate justice according to the law. But, the Praetor Urbanus could only administrate. Unlike a consul or tribune of the plebs, he had no authority to legislate new laws. The Praetor Urbanus was also responsible for overseeing the annual Ludi Apollinaris, or Games of Apollo, and Sulla, during his term, became the first Roman to display a lion hunt as entertainment. Following his term as Praetor Urbanus, Sulla was given the governorship of Cilicia, modern-day Sukhorova, and granted propraetorial powers. Cilicia was located in the province of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and was the epicenter of pirate activity. Piracy on the Mediterranean and Aegean seas was a constant source of disruption to maritime trade, and Sulla was sent to Cilicia in order to deal with this problem. While serving as governor of Cilicia, Sulla was also tasked with concluding the dispute between Cappadocia and Pontus to the Senate's satisfaction. Despite Marius's interference, Cappadocia had remained under the control of Mithridates' young son and his advisors. The Senate formally rejected the young king's claim to Cappadocia, but neither did the Senate support Nicomedes' claim to hold a bastard son of the previous king. Instead, the Senate ordered Sulla to place a Cappadocian nobleman by the name of Ariobarzanes on the throne. Ariobarzanes had the support of Cappadocia's nobility, and was considered a friend of the Roman people. The Senate felt confident that Ariobarzanes would maintain Cappadocia's position as a Roman protectorate in the east. Though it took some time, and several battles, Sulla successfully removed Mithridates' son and his advisors, and installed Ariobarzanes securely on Cappadocia's throne. During the battles which took place, Sulla's legions quickly came to understand just how much Sulla had learned at the feet of military genius, Gaius Marius. They came to greatly respect Sulla's military leadership skills and, during one particular battle, even hailed Sulla as imperator on the field. Being hailed imperator was, among other necessary criteria, an acclamation required for any commander to formally request a triumph from the Senate. Unfortunately for Sulla, the acclamation alone was insufficient to qualify. During Sulla's military campaigns in Cappadocia, he was approached by a Parthian named Orobazes. Orobazes was the ambassador of Parthia's king, another with the name Mithridates, known to history as Mithridates II. The Parthians had risen as a new superpower in the east, but the king of Parthia did not wish to risk war with Rome by stepping on her toes. Orobazes was dispatched to ensure friendly relations between the two empires through a defining of kingdom borders. With Mithridates of Pontus agitating for war in Anatolia, Sulla deemed it wise to enter into a treaty with Mithridates of Parthia, rather than risk the two of them forming an alliance, which would engulf Rome in a war with two Mithridated kings simultaneously. Sulla is credited as being the very first Roman to negotiate, and conclude a peace treaty with Parthia by defining Rome's border along the upper Euphrates River. Yet, despite successfully negotiating this border agreement, Sulla unintentionally, or perhaps intentionally, offended the Parthian ambassador during this historic meeting. Because Parthia had come to Cappadocia in order to seek a treaty with Sulla, protocol dictated that Cappadocia's new king, Ariobarzanes, be present at the border-defining meeting. On the dais, Sulla took the center seat and arranged Ariobarzanes and Orobazes on either side of himself. This, according to Parthian custom, made Sulla most important, while diminishing Parthia as being equal to Cappadocia in her supplications to Rome. For even accepting such an inferior seat, Orobazes, once he returned to Parthia, was executed by King Mithridates II. Another event which would greatly affect Sulla for the rest of his life took place during this fateful meeting. A Chaldean seer, who was a member of Parthia's entourage, prophesied that Sulla would be the greatest man in the world, but that he would also die at the height of his fame and fortune. In Mauritania, King Bocchus, who was father-in-law to the late Numidian king, Jugurtha, and the instrument of his son-in-law's betrayal, had watched the flourishing career of Lucius Cornelius Sulla with interest. Perceiving Sulla's star to be on the rise, and likely having heard rumor of the Chaldean prophecy, Bocchus decided it was time to curry favor with the man who was likely to become Rome's most influential person. Bocchus had chosen Sulla over Marius when he opted to betray his daughter's husband to Rome, ending the war in Numidia. He decided now was the time to show Sulla that Mauritania still supported him. King Bocchus sent an envoy to the Roman Senate to ask permission to dedicate a lavish gift to the city of Rome. The Senate, assuming Bocchus wanted merely to buy a little senatorial insurance for the future, allowed the gift. In 91 BC, a large trophy depicting Rome's defeat of Numidia was gifted to the people of Rome. Trophies, which were a Greek custom, and later adopted by the Romans, were carvings which usually depicted the decisive moment a victory was achieved over one's foes. In the case of Mauritania's gift, the carved scene depicted the gilded characters of King Bocchus handing King Jugurtha over to Lucius Cornelius Sulla. These depictions would have been cut in relief form from marble or ivory, and decorated with weapons, shields and various pieces of armor worn by the vanquished Numidians. Trophies were mounted in various temples in the capital, and dedicated to whichever god or goddess had been glorified for the victory. This caused a problem because, following Rome's victory in Numidia, Gaius Marius had commissioned trophies of his own which depicted his personal conquest of Numidia. The Senate voted to place this new trophy, depicting the end of the war at Sulla's hands, within the same temple that housed the trophy depicting the war's end at the hands of Marius. But, because this trophy came as a gift from King Bocchus, it was viewed by the Optimates as the more likely version of the truth. Marius, who had claimed all the credit for ending the war in Numidia, without sharing any of the glory with Sulla, was outraged by the stunt. Plutarch tells us that Marius, aided by his populares supporters, attempted to pull the trophies from the temple and have them smashed. When Sulla, and the Optimates within the Senate, prevented this, Marius went in real earnest for Sulla, so much so that Sulla had to be physically protected by other members of the Senate. The historians inform us that this event, which was the first adolescent eruption of a potential civil war, was stifled only by the unexpected murder of yet another tribune of the plebs.